Legion is one of the most interesting comic book shows ever made. From delusional eggs hatching in people's minds to time being eaten, it makes bold creative choices unlike any other show. Though the plot can be a bit challenging to follow, it's an incredible journey that pushes the medium and explores the complexity of mental illness. And its use of music is impeccable. From the first episode, it's not uncommon for the show to break out into song and dance in order to further the narrative. The original score composed by Jeff Russo is fantastic, full of eerie and emotional tracks. The show also contains covers of Superman by Rem and Mother by Pink Floyd that are simply superb. However, there is one scene that utilizes music to not only set the stage for an epic conflict, but ties into the characters on a deep level, and that's what I want to talk about. But first, a spoiler warning for all of Legion. It's worth watching without knowing what's coming. The scene I want to focus on is one of the best in the series, the finale fight of Season 2 between David and Farook. The song used in the scene is a cover of Behind Blue Eyes by The Who, sung by Dan Stevens and Navid Negahban. I'm going to break down why the song works so well within the context of the scene and the series overall, as well as discuss how the lyrics relate to the circumstances the characters are going through. Alright, let's get into it. First, I want to talk a bit about the background and intention behind the song. The song was written by Pete Townsend, and the first line he wrote, "If my fist clenches, crack it open," is about resisting temptation. Townsend also intended to use it for a multimedia project, and when talking about that project, he said it was a song sung by the villain of the piece, forced into a position of being a villain, whereas he felt he was a good guy. If you're familiar with Legion, you know how fitting this is for David. There are many different interpretations of the song. Some have noted how the lyrics were based on how Townsend felt that no one knew what it was like to be him, with high expectations. Others have said it's about the loneliness of success. I think all these explanations fit incredibly well into the story of Legion. Though he believes himself the hero, by the end of the series, David is clearly framed as the antagonist. He believes no one understands him, with his success in this case being his extraordinary power. So from this perspective, the song is a great choice. But back to the scene in question. Behind Blue Eyes is working on a couple other levels here. First of all, it's just a great choice to have two characters singing as a lead up to battle. It heightens the sense of tension as these two characters slowly approach, hurling these lines at each other, and it helps the fight feel distinct, even within Legion. Additionally, many of the individual lyrics work very well with the situation the characters find themselves in. I want to break down some of them, and explain how they relate to David and Farook. The first hints of the song play as the opening credits roll. As it transitions to a shot of David floating above the ground, the first line is sung. No one knows what it's like to be the bad man. With the first line, the show has cleverly foreshadowed where David is headed. Throughout Season 2, we've been getting little hints of David's wavering morality. Future Sid has warned Farook that David will be the one to destroy the world, and we saw David brutally torturing Oliver for information. By Season 3, he is viewed fully as the antagonist. So to have his first line of the season finale be, "No one knows what it's like to be the bad man," is a perfect way to set up what is to come. The next line, "No one knows what it's like to be hated," could be connected to David's mental illness. Throughout the show, David exhibits many traits of someone who is schizophrenic. One of the symptoms of this mental illness is a sense of paranoia, sometimes involving a fear that they are in danger or being hunted. So this line could be referencing David's conviction that he's being hunted. After that comes the line, "To be fated, to telling only lies." Beyond just the lies that David feels he has to tell those close to him, this ties into David's delusions. You can make a solid case that some or all of the events of the show didn't actually happen. Between David's mental illness and immense reality-warping power, it's totally possible that the events in the show are a complete fiction he concocted. Through that interpretation, the line is saying that David is only capable of creating lies, of creating a fictional world. Next up is Farook's verse. It's a perfect encapsulation of many of his defining characteristics. He sings these lines in Farsi, a nice touch for the character. There may be minor differences in the wording, but since I don't know Farsi, I'll just reference the official lyrics. It's a fascinating choice to turn this song into a duet, because it's meant to be one person's lament about how lonely it is to be on top, about how nobody understands them. But by having Farook join in the song, it changes the meaning. On some level, you could say that he's empathizing with David. The lyrics, "No one knows what it's like to feel these things like I do," are almost a comfort. Instead of saying, "No one understands the feelings I feel," he's almost saying, "No one around you knows what you're feeling, but I do." After all, he's the only other being on the planet who can possibly conceive of just how powerful David is. His next few lines are similarly appropriate to his character, but they serve a different purpose. These lyrics act as almost a rebuke to David. "No one bites back as hard on their anger. None of my pain and woe can show through." Throughout the series, David is consistently emotional. He makes emotional choices, is quick to anger, and often creates a lot of fallout when that happens. Farook has been shown as the calm, cool, collected antagonist. With these lyrics, he's almost chastising David for behaving in such an emotional way. We've seen him outsmart or overpower David, and that was usually because David acted emotionally. Farook is telling him that he has to control those emotions, that he needs discipline to reach his full potential. Yes, David performs impressive acts when he's emotional, but they're often uncontrolled fits, not directed properly. Emotions are easy triggers for David's power, but as we see in Season 3, he's often at his most powerful when he's completely calm. These lyrics are also Farook saying that he's been holding back, that he's contained the rage that he harbors, and as such, hasn't unleashed the full force of his power onto David. Either interpretation fits with Farook. As the two characters hit the word dreams, the animated version of their mental powers emerge from their body. It's a small detail, but I appreciate it. Right before the battle truly begins, Farook sings the line, "My love is vengeance that's never free," by himself. It's a rather fitting line for his character, considering his past actions. Farook was defeated by David's father, and as revenge, he implanted himself into David's head as a baby. He's been leeching off David for years, and it's implied that he worsened a lot of David's mental problems. But despite that, Farook came to love David like his own son, as he says multiple times throughout the series. His love for David was literally born out of vengeance. And of course, neither of them are free from that. They're bound together by these emotions, David's thirst for vengeance and Farook's twisted love. The characters take a break from the singing for most of the actual fight. Side note here, this is one of the best battles between telepaths ever put to screen. Because fundamentally, telepathic fights are boring to watch. Two people stare at each other, maybe hold their hands to their heads. Sure, we've seen variation on this. Oftentimes it involves some kind of imagined space, maybe a familiar location that's kind of twisted. Still, they often don't reach their full potential. This, on the other hand, does. The idea to animate their telepathy was genius. Not only is it visually stunning, it allows their mental attacks to shift fluidly. Their powers are constantly morphing in an attempt to gain the upper hand or defend themselves. Even after watching the scene like 5 times, I'd end up catching new creatures or objects they'd changed into for a brief moment. It's a more interesting and arguably more realistic depiction of how a battle that's only limited by a fighter's imagination would go. Telepaths need to be able to think on their feet in a duel like this, and the animation depicts just how quickly the tide of a fight can change on the mental battlefield. All in all, just an incredible sequence. Anyway, back to the lyrics. Farook has David paralyzed, and Lenny has just triggered a trap that will drain both of them of their powers. Before that comes into effect, David breaks free of Farook's bonds and continues with the next verse. "When my fist clenches, crack it open, before I use it and lose my cool. When I smile, tell me some bad news, before I laugh and act like a fool." On the surface, these lines read like a cry for help, and on some level, I think David is asking for help. He often does act like a fool, so to speak, when he gets emotional. David's friends are often the ones who have to keep him under control. They're the ones who ground him. He needs them to help him through his struggles. But the framing here suggests a different idea. David shouts these lines to Farook with a furious expression on his face. With this context, the lyrics sound more like a threat. He's challenging Farook, telling him if he doesn't stop David, doesn't crack open his fist, David will unleash his full destructive power. We've been told he's the one who will end the world. If Farook loses to David in this moment, David will have no one powerful enough to keep him in check. At that moment, the trap hits both fighters, ending the telepathic part of their fight. The last few lines are delivered in voiceover, not by David himself. It helps reinforce that their powers are temporarily dampened, since one of the more unbelievable aspects of the fight has been relegated to what sounds like David's thoughts. The next few lines definitely read more like a cry for help. It's fitting that David is no longer vocalizing them, but rather only thinking them. And swallow anything evil can easily be interpreted as the Shadow King infecting David. As the song plays the final, "No one knows what it's like to be the bad man," David raises a rock in preparation to bash Farook's head in. A fitting line to end on. Does Farook deserve it? Probably. But still, killing a person in cold blood is definitely not a heroic move. David is losing the morality he began the show with. You can also read the line as, "Nobody understands what being bad actually means." It's like David is saying that his friends don't understand his intentions. They don't realize that what he's doing isn't evil, it's necessary, heroic even, in his mind, to stop a person like Farook. Either interpretation works. So, the scene closes on the same line it opens with, and with those words, combined with his final action in this opening scene, David cements the course of his journey for the rest of the show, and we get one of the most unique and memorable fights in superhero television, framed around a fantastic song. Legion is such a trippy and amazing show, yet even amongst silent movie sequences and rap battles, this fight stands out. All in all, Behind Blue Eyes is an eerily perfect choice for this sequence. It's a prime example of how to properly integrate music into a show or movie, beyond just an exciting needle drop. Not only does it sound great in the scene, an examination of the lyrics and context behind the song reveals that it functions incredibly well to reinforce the show's characters and themes. In case it wasn't clear, a lot of this is just my own subjective interpretation. Not all of the lines are a one-to-one match, but I think a lot of them fit really well. Much like the show itself, how you think this song reflects the characters and themes is up for debate. It's one of the things that makes Legion so unique. You can interpret it in so many different ways. This video is part of NandovMovies' One Musical Scene project. Each video focuses on a scene that uses music in a creative way. The playlist is in the description, so definitely go check out the other videos. Anyone can make a video and tweet it at NandovMovies to get added to the playlist. Legion's one of my favorite shows, and I've wanted to talk about it for a while now. It's such a visually distinct and creative show, and even if you don't entirely understand it, it's such an amazing ride that's unlike anything else on TV. I hope you enjoyed my analysis. I'd love to hear your thoughts about my interpretation, or any thoughts you had about Legion. I would appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing, and thank you very much for watching.